Before BET or MTV, before cable television or the internet, the show Soul Train taught a generation how to dance, showing the talent of Black America. Families would watch it together in their living rooms and pretend they were on the dance floors doing their best moves so they can feel like superstars too. The Soul Train line, the dancers formed two lines with a space in the middle for dancers to do their thing. And you can't forget the scramble board. Soul Train, man. Soul Train also holds the record as the longest running national syndicated TV show. And what can you say about Don Cornelius? One of the first African Americans to create, produce, host, and own his own show. Now, Don Cornelius was born September 27th, 1936 in Chicago, Illinois. Growing up, Don spent a lot of time drawing and he wanted to be a cartoonist. Now, he attended DuSable High School. Now, other famous people that came from that school were Nat King Cole, Von Freeman, and Red Fox. After graduating high school, he went to the military and joined the Marine Corps, serving 18 months in Korea. Now out of the military, he returned home and got married, had 2 sons, started doing various jobs like selling insurance, working at the liquor store, and then he joined the Chicago Police Department, becoming an officer. Now, while working as a Chicago police officer, one day he pulled over a guy named Roy Wood, who was the news director of a Black radio station called WVON AM, owned by Leonard Chess, who you might know from the movie Cadillac Records. Now see, Roy Wood was amazed by Don Cornelius' voice and offered him a job as a news reporter and a DJ, and also doing other jobs for the station as well. A year later, Don joined the Chicago television station WCIU and hosted a news program called A Black's View of the News. But Don wanted to create something more than just talking about problems Black people were having on TV. He wanted to bring Black entertainment to television. Now see, right, Don Cornelius was inspired by Dick Clark, who hosted American Bandstand, if y'all remember American Bandstand, and he just wanted to make a Black version of that show. Now, after asking his boss at the station to give him a shot of the idea he had about a dance show with Black teens, they agreed, and Soul Train was born. He also got a sponsorship deal with the retailer Sears to back the show, and later on would get sponsorships from Afro Sheen and other Black products. I mean, the show became so big that at one point, they say 80,000 kids signed up to be on the show. Even though he had no money in the beginning to pay big music acts, he would call on Chicago musicians like Curtis Mayfield, staple singers, B.B. King, Tyrone Davis, and Jerry Butler to perform. On August 17th, 1970, in Black and White, the first episode of Soul Train featured Jerry Butler, the Chi-Lites, and the Emotions. A year later, Don wanted to take the show to a national level after having good local ratings in Chicago. So he went to LA. Now, after striking the deal in Los Angeles with a Black-owned hair company sponsorship, Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen, plus the new show was going to be in color, he was ready to launch. And on October 2nd, 1971, Soul Train premiered their new show syndicated from Los Angeles with special guests Gladys Knight and the Pips, Eddie Kendricks, Honeycomb, and Bobby Hutton. Now, as Soul Train popularity grew, right, American Bandstand began to lose its Black audience. So Dick Clark tried to create a similar show called Soul Unlimited. But Black political leaders like Jesse Jackson contacted Dick Clark and the ABC executives to protest. Another powerful guy in Black entertainment during that time named Clarence Avant used his power also to put a stop to Dick Clark. Dick Clark's show, Soul Unlimited, only lasted a year while Soul Train continued to dominate. I mean, Soul Train became so hot that every artist wanted to be on there. Even Michael Jackson stole his famous dance, the moonwalk, which was invented by Soul Train dancer Jeffrey Daniel, called the backslide. Now see, a lot of artists wanted to be on the show so they can get close to some of those dancers. They say that Smokey Robinson was so hot for one of the Soul Train dancers, she inspired him to write the song The Agony and the Ecstasy. I mean, a lot of stars came from Soul Train, man, like Rosie Perez, Fred Rerun Barry, Nick Cannon, Carmen Electra, Jermaine Stewart, Jody Watley, and Jeffrey Daniel, who was part of the group Shalimar. Now see, the group Shalimar, right, was put together by Don Cornelius and Dick Griffey when they formed their own record label called Soul Train Records. But only after 2 years, Don Cornelius wanted out and ended up selling his share to Dick Griffey for $300,000, and he renamed the label Solar Records. Now, as the 80s started rolling in, MTV and BET became powerful, changing the music industry, and hip-hop was also becoming a force. Even though Don Cornelius once said he wasn't a big fan of hip-hop because, he was old school, he was used to bands playing and all that, but he understood how the music industry changes, and hip-hop was in demand. And in 1980, hip-hop pioneer Curtis Blow became the very first rap artist to appear and perform on Soul Train. Now, also around that time, right, Don started suffering from a lot of headaches, and in 1982, he underwent a 21-hour operation to correct a congenital malformation in blood vessels in his brain. Don said in an interview that after the surgery, he never felt quite the same after the operation. In 1987, he created the Soul Train Music Awards to celebrate musicians in R&B, hip-hop, and gospel music. I mean, the series also spawned the Soul Train Lady of Soul Awards, the Soul Train Christmas Starfest, because he felt that there was still a need to highlight the achievements of African Americans. By 1993, Don Cornelius stepped down as Soul Train host and hired actor Maestro Clark to take over from 1997 to 1999. Then he got actor Shamar Moore, who will host from 1999 to 2003. And then actor Dorian Gregory also will host the show from 2003 to 2006. Now back to 1995, right? Don Cornelius would be inducted into the Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame. And in 1997, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2001, he married a young Russian model named Victoria Chapman. And by that time, Soul Train was struggling to get big name artists to perform on the show. So in 2006, he stopped making new episodes and called it quits. Now in 2007, Don and his wife Victoria separated, accusing him with domestic abuse after she allegedly pepper sprayed him multiple times. In 2008, after turning down offers to sell his show for years, he decided to sell the Soul Train franchise to Mad Vision Entertainment, a multimedia company specializing in branded urban content and production. Now in 2009, Don was sentenced to 3 years probation after pleading no contest to misdemeanor spousal battery with his ex-wife. Now see, when that divorce finally was settled, Don had to pay $10,000 a month in spousal support, buy his ex-wife a home, and pay college tuition fees for his adopted daughter. Now after that, friends say that his poor health and his divorce to his ex-wife really took him down and drained his energy and his way of thinking. He went into a deep depression, and he was very unhappy, and there wasn't much anyone could do about it. One family member said that he didn't even want to give his wife a dime because she didn't earn none of that money. It came from all his hard work, and a lot of people told Don, don't marry her. And on February 1st, 2012, Don Cornelius called his son in the early hours, telling him he was just unhappy in life. His son rushed to his house and found Don wounded with a gunshot wound to his head. He called 911, and Don was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now, police ruled out foul play because they didn't find a suicide note. Friends of Don Cornelius say he was dealing with demons and wasn't surprised he took his own life with a gunshot to the head. Now see, Don did have 2 life insurance policies that were worth thousands of dollars, but in his divorce settlement agreement, Don had to make his ex-wife Victoria the beneficiary of both of his life insurance policies. Now check this, right? The breakdown of that policy agreement went like this. If the policyholder commits suicide within 2 years of the time the policy is issued, the insurance company can deny payment as stated by California law. Now see, Don Cornelius had the policy for more than 2 years, so his ex-wife Victoria Chapman ended up entitled to $300,000 in benefits. He was 75 years old. R.I.P. Don Cornelius.